Amy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can't hear you.
I can hear you fine, Lorraine.
I think Amy's muted.
I still can't hear you.
You're still muted, Amy. It says you're muted.
Mm-mm.
Okay, can you hear me now? Thanks, Cassie.
Yep.
Yes.
Cassie to the rescue. Okay, thanks, Cass.
Amy, will you talk again?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you.
Can other people hear me, but not Lorraine?
Yes, I can hear
This is
you.
why we don't do virtual hearings.
Oh no.
Right.
Okay, I'm gonna go try to find Cassie. Now I can't hear anybody. I'm just I can't hear anybody. They are.
Oh, it's
Just come
going.
into the office, please.
It's going to your AirPods. Hold on just a second. Where's that? This is Cassie testing. We're good. Okay.
Now it works.
Yes. Enjoy. Don't forget. Yeah, enjoy. Have fun.
Okay, Amy, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Yay.
Right.
So is there a way for me to see everybody that is in here on my screen? I only see 6 at a time. Is that what everybody else sees?
Yes.
I'm seeing a whole bunch, but I couldn't
I
tell
see
you how
one.
to do it.
Well, since we're not all in a room together and I can't see everyone, we'll just have to try to figure out the best way to make it known that if somebody has a comment that they would like to share.
I think there's a hand raising feature that should work for that. We try it. Are you seeing those when we raise our hands?
Has somebody
Neil
raised their
Yeah, I
Neil
can
did,
see
and I did.
that. I don't see how to do it on my end, but that's okay.
On my screen, it's down at the bottom where the like mute and stop video buttons are. There's a little hand.
I see a little smiley face, but not a hand. Let's see what that is. Oh, no, it's in there. Never mind. Thank you. We can do. So you have to like your screen size. You can redo that any time. So you hit the arrow buttons to view up and down. Okay. If you want to see who's talking, like just who's talking, we can change it to that. No. Okay. Okay.
Sorry. Thank you. Okay, well, we'll give this a try and see what happens. If people can raise their hand, that would be great, and I'll try to do that. It's probably the first and the last virtual conference, if we can avoid it in the future. All right. I think based on what I've got, now that it's 1:40, I assume everybody has joined that intends to join. So just as an initial matter, I just want to, before we go on the record, we're going to conduct this technical conference, and I just wanted to remind people that the purpose of that is to allow discussion and questions regarding the issue that's to be decided in this case, which will be whether distributed energy resource aggregators are public utilities under Indiana law. So that's our whole purpose for being here and for our discussion. We will go on the record to start the technical conference, and then we will hold the technical conference off the record. Otherwise, this is going to be very difficult for all the transcription. And then once the discussion is over with, we will then close out the record. If you're not speaking, probably the best way to do this is to keep yourself muted. And then when you go to speak, if you want to use your raise your hand button, and that way, then you can unmute and we'll go from there. Amy, are you all ready to go on the record?
I am. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go on the record. This is a technical conference before the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission in a cause docketed before the Commission as cause number 46043, captioned as in the matter of the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission's investigation into the public utility status of distributed energy resource aggregators. Notice of the time and place of the hearing was given as provided by law by publication in Marion County in the Indianapolis Star on May 25th, 2024, in Hendricks County in the Hendricks County Republican on May 30, 2024, in Lake County in the Post Tribune on May 24, 2024, and the Northwest Indiana Times on May 29, 2024. Vanderburgh County in the Courier and Press on May 29th, 2024, and in Allen County in the Journal Gazette on May 25th, 2024. These are newspapers of general circulation, and the publications were made at least 10 days prior to the date of this technical conference. The proofs of publication of notices have been received by the Commission and are now incorporated into the record of this cause by reference and placed in the official files of the Commission. Notice has also been given to the Indiana Office of Utility Consumer Counselor and other interested parties. We will now go off the record for the technical conference. Okay. Is there someone that would like to kick this off with a question or an area of topic of discussion that they would like to discuss?
I mean, I guess I will go ahead. I was going to see if somebody else wanted to jump in. Your Honor, my name is Ryan Mann. I'm with Denton's Bingham Greenbaum, and our client, who I'll allow him to introduce himself, is with Advanced Energy United, and they work with these aggregators, and he can provide you kind of an overview of what they do and what their members do. Let's see, I can't see him, but Michael, are you there?
I am there. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate the intro. Thank you for having me, and thank you to staff and the commission for putting on this wonderful workshop. I guess before we get started, I'd like to make sure that we're all kind of thinking about on the same page, exactly what a DER aggregator does, and what kind of business they are in, and what kind of services they offer. The best way to kind of really think about this is the Department of Energy recently put out a new report in the past few months to talk about that elements that are common across all DER aggregators are a mechanism for orchestrating electrical demand generation or storage of distributed energy resources, or DERs, using a common architecture or a measurable grid service. These DER aggregators then in turn can take what they've gathered together in order to sell, trade, recognize, or otherwise distribute or use the energy for transmission or distributed grid operators to support grid management in some way, shape, or form, whether that be demand management, supply management, or anything else in between. It's also important to keep in mind that these DER aggregators also they can be made up of one or numerous different technologies. They don't just have to be, for example, EV chargers or EV charging stations. They could also be batteries or solar panels, microgrids, or anything else in between. And then the other thing to keep in mind is also there's three kind of main buckets of business models really about how these DER aggregators work. Under the first model, the entity responsible for enrolling a DER customers is a utility that serves the electric load. In this scenario, the utility will reach out to customers and offer their existing DERs or purchase DER subsidies for enrollment incentives. The second model is a manufacturer or retail of DER who sold it to the customer and takes responsibility for the enrollment and the management of those customers and their technologies. Oftentimes, here, DER companies that have launched what's known as virtual power plants have also been kind of put in this bucket, but in others as well. On the third model, a DER aggregator enrolls multiple types and different brands aggregated into a single portfolio that directly or indirectly via partnerships with a variety of DERs in residential and non-residential settings. In some instances, the DER aggregator contracts with a separate market interface to provide or facilitate participation in wholesale markets where the rules and requirements vary by region. So any questions on kind of how this kind of ground rules definition and explanation of DER business models before we go further? All right, seeing none, I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Siegfried, please.
Anyone else have anything else they would like to discuss or talk about? Questions?
This is Kay Pashas, representing INM. Can you give a brief not too technical overview of kind of what kind of equipment DER aggregators use to, kind of collect and bundle um, the resources.
So I assume that question is for me. In terms of equipment, are you talking about like physical equipment? Or are you talking about like software platforms? What do you, can you be a little more specific?
At a high level, kind of both.
Sure. So we're as my council represented earlier, we're a trade association. So we represent several different DER aggregators, including many that work in Indiana. The equipment that is used for management is it can be, there's physical equipment and then there's also software equipment. And it really varies very much by business model as well as by individual company about how they do their business. So it's not a one size fit all technology.
Okay. Thank you.
A question I was going to pose to the utilities on the call is to try to understand their current interactions with aggregators, their current experiences, past experiences, just kind of understand the landscape from their perspective. Everyone's jumping in.
I'm guessing we mostly have lawyers on here for the utilities, not, the technical folks. So I'm not sure any of us are the best people to answer that question. But I mean, if anybody wants to, go for it, but I can't.
Okay, it's Robbie Sears with NIPSCO. I guess not being an attorney, I'll at least offer a couple of thoughts. To be quite honest, to date, the relationship with aggregators has been extremely limited, if really not there. So a lot of this was just to kind of understand the model, the relationship that you have directly with customers, and those types of things, because we really haven't had that experience. We have had some discussions with what I would call folks that work in the aggregation market that may offer programs to the utility, but aggregate load and bring that as a demand response resource to the utility through like a DSM type approach. But nothing has been contracted with any providers as of date. So very, very limited from our utility.
Okay, thank you.
This is Scott Jones. I'm with the Office of the Utility Consumer Counselor, and I might have a question or two for Mr. Weiss while he's here, if I may. And it goes a little deeper, perhaps, than just the definition of a DER or an aggregate. So if I'm going, just let me know if it's a question that you can't properly answer. But Mr. Weiss, are you aware of any aggregators currently selling to MISO? Wholesale?
Yes, there are several aggregators selling in the wholesale marketplace. We have seen, and that also have started explore business options in Indiana. I can only really speak to our membership role.
Right.
But yes, there are, I should say, that there are ones that operate both at the MISO level and then also are looking in Indiana.
And going just a little deeper, is it an option that someone among your members might be looking into it to both offer at a retail and a wholesale level in Indiana?
I can't speak to our individual members and their business plans, unfortunately.
Okay.
Just based on my discussions I've had with them so far.
Did what?
Based
Are
on
you
the
done?
discussions I've had with them before this
Okay.
call.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to ask.
Michael, this is Steve. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Steve from the IURC. I just wanted to follow up a little bit on a question that Kay had earlier regarding sort of hardware and software that the aggregators deploy. I would just note that in the on the IURC's implementation website under the September workshop, there is a slide deck from this, and it does go into a little bit of detail in regard to some of the hardware that they use for purposes of recording the meter and the pulse to send the information, et cetera. So I don't know if that'll help or not, but
Thank you.
It was quite helpful, especially in prepping for this workshop as well. So thank you guys for posting that.
Michael, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Rich Bronte with Commission staff, and I just you talked about business models earlier. Are you seeing any of your members that would aggregate based on technology type, like solar altogether as one, or is that used as part of a good industry model?
So we are seeing some of our membership, it absolutely does aggregate by technology type, but also there are other aggregators that essentially provide it as the service so that, let's say, a utility can procure that aggregation as well. So we have members that, like physically put in, let's say, solar and batteries, and then at the same time we also have members who are the software companies behind that. So we have both, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Michael. This is Dale Thomas with the Commission Advisory Staff. I'm curious if you can answer a question for me. Do your aggregators control the plant and equipment that their DERs? Do they control in the DERs?
Can you elaborate a little more what you mean by control?
Do they tell them what to do and they do it?
So our members, each one of them has a different business model. It also depends on the contracts that they have. Let's say if they do contract with a utility or if they do it on their own. So I would say, for lack of a better term, it's kind of a mixed bag. It just depends on the individual business model that each one of our members has.
Thank you.
I guess before we get any further, I wanted to ask it. I know we touched on this a little bit earlier. Are we, for the purposes of this technical workshop, are we focusing mostly on the wholesale side? So with MISO, which I know this commission does amazing work with, and the RTOs, for lack of a better term, the RTO side, or are we going to focus much more on the kind of the local Indiana retail side as well? So I just want to make sure we're clarifying that point. Or both.
I'm guessing both, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think there are any strict parameters set when we talked about this technical conference, so I think it's all probably fair game.
Is that commission staff, advisory staff, Dale Thomas? As I understand the commission's directive, the purpose of the investigation is to determine whether the aggregators are public utilities in the state of Indiana. I would consider that, from my perspective, to be the key and only question of this proceeding. And therefore, probably the most valuable thing from this technical conference is a discussion around that.
Yeah, and I'll offer that, this is Kay Pashis again, that in other perhaps analogous situations, the wholesale, bidding into only, an RTO or something, or a wholesale agreement versus retail isn't you know, you can be a utility in Indiana, a public utility in either scenario. So that's why I think it, you know, possibly goes to both.
This is Steve Davies from the IURC. Again, I have a question for Michael Weiss, if I could. And this is a follow-up to Dale's earlier question where he asked you if aggregators control DERs. I think your response was it depends on the business model. Can we assume from that there are business models wherein DER aggregators control, and by control I mean dispatch DER aggregations?
Yeah, there are certain DER aggregator companies that do dispatch on demand, you know, but as I said, you know, each one of them is kind of different. But I think the really important thing also kind of to follow up on both of your points is like the thing is that this energy that they're dispatching or that they're collecting or aggregating, not to use the, is really being, it's sent back to the grid. It's not being sold to individual consumers. So it's not like, I have a battery, your power's out, I'm selling power to you directly. It's I'm putting power back on the grid that I'm not using. So there's no sale going on here. And there's no transaction going on.
This is Donna Seeger Lawson. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm from INM. Indiana Michigan Power. And I guess just to sort of maybe jumpstart the discussion a little bit more, what we're concerned about is my understanding of FERC Order 222 is that when DER aggregators participate in the wholesale market, they're essentially taking generation that customers put on the grid and they're selling it into PJM. And so we, from a reliability perspective, need to make sure that that generation, when they say they're going to be there, they're going to be there. Otherwise, the whole system doesn't balance. And that's why I think I understand your point about you're not selling electricity, but you are providing electricity to the wholesale grid, and everyone is relying on the fact that you said you were going to do it, and we need you to do it. Otherwise, we've got problems.
So if I understand your point, Donna, and for lack of a better term, your concern about this, you're worried that like once this power is sold back to the grid, you just want to make sure it's a reliable and consistent source. So that way, when you guys need it for capacity purposes or peak load management or demand, higher demand, is that what you're saying?
Yes, essentially, you know, the distribution utility has to balance all of the inflows and the outflows of electricity on a, you know, day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute basis. And if we are relying on the fact that DER aggregators said they could contribute, I'm making this up as I go along, 10 megawatts of peak capacity, we need to make sure that that actually is going to show up, and you don't only have 8 megawatts of peak capacity, things like that. That's why I think that we believe that DER aggregators are a public utility, because they are supplying load that is ultimately being used by all customers.
So thank you. That clarifies a lot of questions that I had in preparation for this. I guess to that point also is like, the idea is also is we don't mind being, you know, regulated for the sake of consumer protections as well as protecting our customers. We're seeing that in other states that we operate in, where, for example, in Michigan right now is workshopping a few proposals right now, as well as staff is putting out, having meetings on these things, focusing on consumer protection. But at the same time also, I'm not gonna, I guess I will leave it to the lawyers to fight out basically about whether it's a public utility based on your question. But at the same time, we don't really feel that we should be regulated as a public utility overall. As I said, because we're not really selling directly to a consumer, we're not engaging in that commerce.
This is Steve from the IURC. If I could follow up on that and your earlier comment that no sales were actually taking place. I'm just trying to get clarification here. So and this is going to come in two parts. So it's my understanding that a participant, a DER participant, me, the homeowner with photovoltaics, I'm in essence selling a product to that aggregator, or put differently, I suppose, I'm being compensated for the product that I'm providing to that aggregator. And then that aggregator, the second part of this, is selling those products on the wholesale market. Is my understanding in that regard at least correct?
So it doesn't necessarily have to be selling. You are correct that that is one business model, but there's other business models also where the DR aggregators directly contract with the utilities in order to help them gather demand from devices as well. So
And in that model, I'm sorry, and in that model, the aggregator would be selling to the utility. Is that what I'm understanding? So the aggregator would compensate the resource and then sell those products to the utility that would then use them however they use them.
Yes.
Very good.
And then also on top of that, also just for clarity purposes, I know there's a lot of definitions running around about like what a DR aggregator is, but also it's not always selling power. It's also, for example, like power not being used or not being taken down, taken off the grid as well. So that's something that also to keep in mind as well.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Michael, I thought it might be helpful if you noted what your experience has been so far, maybe in other states, as to maybe their approaches thus far.
Sure. I've done a little bit of research. So as I mentioned before, I'll go to a little more in depth. I think Michigan's a really good example of what's going on right now. Michigan is currently meeting in the form of workshops, as well as they've accepted some comments and some proposals as well from the general public, industry, et cetera, on DR aggregation. And what we're really seeing is that Michigan is really focusing on consumer protection here with DER aggregation. You're not considering them public utilities, but yet they want to make sure, and rightfully so, and we 100% agree with this, that consumer protections need to be there and make sure that consumers are not defrauded and ratepayers are not being defrauded.
Are you aware of any other states that are doing something similar to what the Indiana Commission is doing? I mean, investigating this issue.
Sure. So within the Midwest, also we're seeing Illinois has even, I should say, is taking like even is kind of moving on the same track as well. I can't provide more specifics on that, but beyond that, they are moving along the same line of where they're focusing on consumer protection.
For what it's worth for the group, I believe Minnesota, Missouri, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey also have processes underway. Just the ones I'm aware of.
Can you repeat your list again?
Yes, it's my understanding Minnesota, Missouri, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey also have processes underway to different degrees.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'll just chime in again that what we're trying to interpret is an Indiana statute.
This is Donna Seeger Lawson again from I&M. And I think the concern is not really just from a consumer protections. In other words, if I'm a residential customer and I've got a solar panel and I'm participating in a DER aggregation, I think that the commission probably should have jurisdiction over that. That's not my opinion, maybe not others, but and I also am concerned about the wholesale side of things, where whether you're a generator supplying load into PJM, or even if you are an aggregator of reducing load on the system during peak periods, that make sure that happens. If you say you're going to either put generation on the system or take load off the system, that actually happens, because that doesn't directly impact a single retail customer. That impacts all of our retail customers within our distribution system. If you're going to act like a load supplier or a load reducer, we utilities need to have some assurance that you're going to do what you said you were going to do, or that your customers or DER that you're aggregating are going to do what they said they were going to do for the good of all of our customers.
Also going back to Steve's also earlier point, and also someone who also responded to Steve also, by the way, Donna, thank you for saying that as well. I'll make an, I think that's an interesting point, but I think kind of going to that is we also don't, as I said, we don't consider ourselves public utilities or shouldn't be regulated under, but we're open to, we think that the new statute that allows rulemaking under FERC 2222 also could be useful in terms of putting in regulatory safeguards here. If we do not consider DR aggregators, as I said, as a public utility.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, doesn't sound like there's any more. So I will call Amy back and we've established, oh, thank you, Amy. We've established deadlines in our pre-hearing conference order, and the hearing will be on August 27th at 9:30. So.
Is that 222, Lorraine?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm ready when you are.
Okay. Let's go back on the record. Our technical conference has been concluded, and we are now continued to the evidentiary hearing on August 27th at 9:30 a.m. in room 222. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.